looks like we. Okay, it looks like we have a quorum. Am I correct? I'd like to call the village board to order at 7:31. We do have a quorum. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
Currently, we have present Trustee Baldoff, Trustee Stokebrand, Trustee Arndorfer, and President McCaig. I believe Trustee Warren is excused this evening, and I believe Trustee Ursink will be attending the first few minutes of the meeting, but being excused at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, he's going to attempt to call in. He's traveling for work, so he's going to attempt to call in. So I don't know how available he'll be to speak. Or.
Okay. We have Trustee Ursink just joined us, and I'm sure Trustee Bockhorst is on her way. Switching from Zoom rooms. Thank you for everyone for being here tonight. We'll do our best to move through the agenda thoughtfully but efficiently. I know there are a lot of exciting events happening this evening. The first, we have several special orders of business tonight under item 3. 3A is consideration of Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements route. We have a presentation by Strand and Associates, or a representative thereof. We also have Assistant Director Joel Cost and Director Buchlick on the phone, or on the call as well. So I would hand it over to whatever order you'd like to present in.
Hi everyone, it's Phil with Strand. I should be sharing my screen now. Can everyone see it? Okay, Leanne or Joel, do you guys have anything you want to say before I start the presentation?
I do not. Well, actually, I can just do a very, very brief overview and remind the village board that I believe it was in 2019, Strand Associates was one of the firms who responded to an RFP for the evaluation and design engineering of the Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements. We have spent quite a bit of time hoping for some additional wet weather events to calibrate the model. And Strand has additionally been spending this time evaluating additional alternatives to the one that was originally presented by Clark Dietz in their final design memo. But Phil is going to give you the details on that. At the end of the presentation, the primary discussion point will be staff's request for the village board to identify a preferred alternative and route, and then direct staff and Strand to begin construction documents and the design work for the eventual first phase construction, which is currently scheduled to take place in 2023. But I will turn it over to Phil Baduzik from Strand.
Okay, thank you, Leanne.
Phil, if I could, this is President McCaig, if I could just interject for a point of order. If trustees have questions during the presentation, do you want them to hold them until the end or be recognized?
Whatever's easiest. You know, sometimes when the slide's on the screen, it's easier to just interrupt me and and ask the question then. So that's completely fine. Whatever works best.
Great. So I'll give that direction to the trustees. And then for point of clarification, we'll have the presentation and trustees can ask questions. Then I'll ask if anyone is attending the meeting from the public who would like to speak on this matter. And then we'll open it up for consideration and debate and discussion among the board. So thank you. Now I will hand it back over to Phil.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so as Leanne had already introduced, so this is for the southeast area combined sewer improvements route evaluation. And I'll pull up a map here to show you specifically where that is. So the presentation outline, I'll go through background, which Leanne already gave a little bit of background, the various alternatives, costs for the alternatives, and then the schedule and phasing. So if everyone can see, whoever can see the screen, this right-hand side, the gray area, that's the combined sewer area. So essentially everything to the east of Oakland Avenue is combined sewer, and then everything to the west is a separate sewer. And what I mean by that is a separate sewer, you have a sanitary sewer and a storm sewer. In the combined sewer area, it's primarily just one pipe that conveys sanitary sewage and stormwater. There are some pockets of storm sewer within the combined area, but for the most part, they are true combined sewers. Project background. So the goal of the project, why is all the money being spent? To increase the level of protection against basement backups in the southeast area. So the whole goal of this project is to reduce how many times there are basement backups. This project won't eliminate all basement backups, but it'll increase that level of protection. There were improvements completed in 2012 in Basin 1. That's a part of the separate area. And again, these are in response to the July 2010 flooding events. For those of you who were in the village at that time, you'll remember that was an enormous rainfall event that created widespread flooding and basement backups. So these projects all stemmed from that event back in 2010. So then also in 2012, in a different basin, Basin 6, there was a project completed to increase the level of protection in that basin. And then 2014, there was a second phase. In 2016, the northeast combined sewer area. So this project focuses on the southeast. 2016, the northeast had improvements done to increase the level of protection. More background. So in response to the July 2010 events, there was a comprehensive facilities plan completed for the entire village where there were issues from the wet weather event. Specifically in the southeast area, there was an advanced facilities plan completed in 2012. 2016, Clark Dietz completed the Edgewood Interceptor MIS planning report. So the Edgewood Interceptor, I will discuss that in more detail, but that's essentially the first phase of this project, and it's being completed by MMSD later this year and next year. 2017, there's Combined Sewer Service Area Environmental Assessment Report. 2017, 2018, 2019, there are updates to the recommended alternatives for the southeast area. The Edgewood Interceptor, it's being completed by MMSD, and it's actually bidding right now, so they'll be receiving bids shortly, and then they'll have a contractor under contract later this year with completion at the end of 2022. And then a question that I'm sure most people would have in the combined area was separation considered to separate the combined sewer into a storm sewer and sanitary. And that was evaluated. It was part of that 2017 evaluation, and it wasn't not pursued due to DNR permitting, just the permitting challenges with new storm sewer outfall into the Milwaukee River made it not a viable option. This is hard to see what streets are here, but this Lake Drive is on the right-hand side of the screen. The bottom of the screen is Edgewood Avenue in Oakland. This just shows the green boxes are all areas that had reported basement backups. This is out of the village's GIS system, just to give you an idea of it is a widespread problem in the southeast area. Additional background, so design criteria for this project. So an XP Swim, it's a computer software that models collection systems, essentially sanitary sewer, storm sewer systems. This was developed by others, updated by MMSD for their Edgewood Interceptor project. And this is the model that we used to develop the alternatives that I'm presenting here. So the design storm event, this is technical, but I want everyone to at least hear it. It's the NOAA Atlas 14 10-year 1-hour recurrence of interval event. So it's equivalent to about 1.91 inches in 1 hour. And it's a fairly intense, like this 1.91 inches happens, the bulk of it happens in the middle of the event from say 20 to 40 minutes. So it's not 1.9 evenly spread over an hour. There's a more intense period. So it's a fairly conservative event. The Edgewood Interceptor is designed for this event. So that's a critical piece of information. You know, we could put in bigger and bigger pipes in Shorewood, but when it gets to the Edgewood Interceptor, which connects to the MMSD system, there's a bottleneck there. MMSD is not allowing any more flow, essentially. So this is why we're designing to this event, because this is where our downstream control is. So the modeling, it does not show basement backups in the southeast area. And what that means in the modeling sense is the water levels in the combined sewer are at least 6 feet below the road surface. So there were surveys done in the village to show that basements are in general 6 feet below the road surface. So that's the other modeling criteria. There are some modeled backups shown in the southwest combined sewer area. So on this map that I have pulled up, I have a couple circles here, and it's just generally in these areas. So these projects don't address these areas. These areas were discussed in those previous documents, so this isn't a new finding. So those documents had some recommendations for these areas. And then just again, to reiterate, basement backups will occur in the project area during storm events greater than the design storm event. So if we get 3 inches in an hour, there's probably going to be basement backups. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that, you know, existing ground moisture content, how intense that storm is throughout that 1 hour period. But bottom line is this isn't going to protect everyone from every event, but it'll have a significant increase in the protection from what is currently the current protection in this area. Flow metering. So to make sure, or to verify that what we're modeling is representative of what is actually in the field and installed, MMSD installs flow meters for the village free of charge. So we had these meters put in last August, and of course, since last August, it's been very dry. There haven't been any real significant rainfall events. So we're still waiting and hoping to get some of those events. But from the data we have received, our distribution of flow in the model is representative of what we're seeing from the metered flow. I'll pause. I see Kathy or Trustee Stokebrand has a question.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to, I'm not really adept at reading sewage maps, sewerage system maps. So these look like they go obviously under roadways, right? So the big major east-west there is Capitol kind of in the middle of the map.
Yeah, this is Capitol Drive here, I believe.
And so then it seems a little odd to me, like Jarvis, I live near Atwater, Jarvis, there doesn't seem to be any sewerage under Jarvis sewage system. Which would be the next east-west north of Capitol by the lake. I wonder if, is that Jarvis? Okay.
I think that might be, or here.
Okay.
Are you thinking this stretch?
A little bit farther south. And then my other question is, that line that goes from Lake Drive east to the lake there, it says combined. You're sure that's not just stormwater?
That's one of those storm sewers that I had mentioned earlier. There's a couple areas of storm sewer in the combined area, and that's one of them. So it's hard to see on this map, but there's a different color, like an orangish pipe. And there's one storm sewer here, and then there's the storm sewer at 4480 that we're all familiar with. So there's
Right, and the one at 4480 is definitely just storm sewer. The one right opposite Wood, is that storm and sanitary?
no, it's storm.
It's
just
only storm, so that's miscolored.
Yeah, it does look like it's red. So it's
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
So these white boxes here are where we had the various meters, and I'm not going to get into great detail here, but the bottom line is we're trying to get real flow data in the pipes at these various points, and then check with our model and see if we're getting a similar distribution of flow in our model. And for the limited data we've gotten, it is matching up pretty well. So I feel pretty confident in the model. I'd like to have a bigger event to completely verify it, but I feel pretty good about it. And what it would change at this point is it might change some of the pipe sizes in different locations that we've modeled, but it's not going to have a wholesale change on any of the route alternatives or anything like that. So I don't think it should hold up any decisions at this point. It'd just be one of those things that would be nice to have, just to confirm that any of the smaller pipes that are connecting into the pipes that we're replacing are adequately sized. So jumping into the route analysis. So there's 4 different routes that I'm going to present. There's a lot of words here, and I'll have photos or pictures of each of them with the routes on the subsequent slides, but just a high level description of them. So 2019 is the proposed route that Clark Dietz developed. So this route generally upsized combined sewers along Shorewood Boulevard, Prospect, and then it added a relief sewer from North Prospect to East Edgewood. And the difference between a combined sewer and a relief sewer, so combined sewer will always have flow in it. So there's always going to be some sanitary flow in the pipe, and then when it rains, there'll be sanitary and stormwater flow. A relief sewer will only have flow during rain events, and that would be larger rain events. So when the combined sewer capacity reaches a certain point, the flow will essentially spill into the relief sewer, or the level will come up, and then the relief sewer will become active. Okay, I'll pause again. Trustee Stokerbrand.
So would you say that the relief sewer is going to be sort of like a mini deep tunnel, except not deep? It's like it's for overflow?
Yeah, that's very similar. Yep.
Thank you.
Alternative 1. So this one is strictly a relief sewer. It's along North Downer. It's also along Stratford in Maryland, but just so the slide wasn't too wordy, I didn't put every street on here. Alternative 2, this one's similar to the 2019 route, except we run the relief sewer along Menlo instead of Stratford. And then alternative 3 is similar to number 1, but the relief sewer is routed along Menlo instead of Stratford. So as I said, I'll show you a figure of each of these. So this is the 2019 proposed route. So these heavy red lines are new combined sewers. So this is a main trunk line. It runs on Shorewood Boulevard to Prospect, goes south on Prospect, and then it ties in. This is there was a bottleneck project completed in the late 1990s. So there's a 78-inch sewer that starts here and goes down Stratford and then to Edgewood. So that's why the new 78 stops at Menlo, and then a 48-inch relief sewer is installed in that area. And there's a relief sewer installed along Maryland between Menlo and Stratford. And then these are all upsized combined sewers to convey additional flow from these pipes. So this is called kind of the base alternative, or the 2019 proposed route. So then we did our route analysis. One of the things we did is we contacted all the utilities to get their atlas mapping and just make sure there weren't any deal breakers in any of these routes. You know, any buried infrastructure that was going to be extremely costly to relocate or make installation just more costly. So these are just maps showing there's various We Energies, electrical conduit, gas mains, water mains, all those sorts of things, just identifying where they are so we can choose an appropriate route. So alternative number one, so this alternative, we connect at Shorewood and Downer, a 48-inch relief sewer, and then we run it south on Downer to Stratford, and then Stratford heads west to Maryland, and then Maryland connects into the Edgewood Interceptor. So the Edgewood Interceptor begins here and goes essentially to the bike trail. The difference with this route, so the base route, or the 2019 route, is more this TO line here, upsizing this combined sewer and then installing the relief sewer from Menlo and Stratford. So notice, one thing you might notice with this alternative is there isn't as much existing combined sewer being replaced. And that's because we're intercepting flow from these cross sewers or sooner than we would be if we were just leaving it or upsizing the existing trunk line. So by doing that, that reduces the amount of combined sewer that needs to be replaced, because we essentially are using the relief sewer earlier, or intercepting this flow earlier than having it have to be all the way conveyed all the way to Prospect, if that makes sense. And then along Stratford, there's some sewer that does need to be upsized that will be replaced. We do need to upsize the sewer along Maryland from Menlo to Stratford. And then there's sewer here that needs to be replaced too, just for constructability purposes. We've also assumed that any water main that is running, that's already installed in these streets, is going to be replaced. And then all these roads we've assumed will be reconstructed too. And Downer is a road that's in fairly poor condition. So that's another advantage to this route, is a road that's in need of reconstruct would be reconstructed as part of this project. We do also have money included to line this existing sewer. So the sewer that would have been upsized is upsized in the 2019 alternative. The condition of that, and it's an older combined sewer, it hasn't been televised, so we don't know exactly what the condition is. Generally, these sewers, the brick sewers, are in suitable condition for lining. So we do have, it's about $1 million to line this sewer, but that's included in here, and then that would provide, their 50 years of life on this pipe. So that is alternative one. Any questions at this point? I'll pause. I've been talking a lot. Okay. Alternative two. So this one, as I mentioned, is very similar to the 2019 alternative. All the combined sewer here being replaced, upsizing this main trunk line. The difference here is the route would, instead of the relief sewer going south along Prospect, we have it going west along Menlo and then down Maryland. The advantage of this alternative is we can eliminate some tunneling in this area. Prospect's only 24 feet wide, and there's already a 78-inch sewer installed here. So the 2019 plan assumed that there'd be tunneling. This would require boring and jacking, which is another trenchless method, but not quite as expensive as tunneling. And you have a wider street here and wider areas for the equipment. So that was the thought, that this would be more constructible. There's drawbacks with working in the median on this street on Menlo and whatnot, but that's the biggest difference with this alternative, is just the route is along Menlo instead of Stratford. And then alternative 3 is again very similar to alternative 1, except the route turns on Menlo to Maryland instead of running on Stratford to Maryland. So that's the primary difference with this alternative. And again, this would probably be easier construction, as you have the boring, you have a wider median here, and then you do have the boring and jacking, because this is deeper, so that's why you would have to bore and jack here. It gets to be about 25 feet deep in this intersection. So once the sewer depths are over 20 feet or so, that's where it becomes difficult to have open cut construction. Open cut being that the backhoe digs out the trench and then they are able to just install the pipe without any trenchless methods. So that's why the bore and jack is here, because it's a deeper area. So alternative 1 does not have any boring and jacking, but there are more existing utilities on Stratford, which make that alternative a little bit more difficult to construct along Stratford. Opinion of probable costs. So the 2019 proposed layout, about 21 million. Alternative 1, about 13.5 million. As I said, it does include the sewer lining. Alternative 2, again, 20.7 million. And alternative 3, 14.1 million. As I mentioned, all costs include water main replacement in all locations with new sewer, and all costs have a contingency for green infrastructure. The main difference for these, the cost difference between the 2019 and alternative 1, so there's a lot more combined sewer being installed. And then there's also some difficulties, I'll back up a slide here, with installing this sewer where there's already an active sewer and having to bypass pump around this work. So you'd have to install this section of sewer, you'd have a bypass pump here, and you'd have to bypass flow to here, which is costly. And then you'd have to continue to do that. And there's risk associated with that with wet weather and whatnot. So the bypassing is another significant cost and risk, where here there's no existing pipe. So they can work in the dry essentially the whole time and not have to bypass. Other advantages and disadvantages of the alternatives. So the 2019 layout replaces more existing aged combined sewer. So that was all the additional red lines, reconstructs more roads, so less future road projects required. Disadvantages, higher costs, the bypass pumping, Prospect's only 24 feet wide, so we're going to lose all the trees in that area. There's tunneling planned, which is a more difficult construction method. More risk associated with that. It doesn't reconstruct Downer, which is in poor condition. Alternative 1, lower costs, minimal bypass pumping, easier construction since Downer is 44 feet wide, fewer tree impacts, no tunneling or boring. Does reconstruct Downer, which is in poor condition. Some disadvantages, there's 16-inch transmission water main on the east side of Downer, so we'll have to this alternative's chosen. Obviously, that's a primary concern to make sure that that line is not impacted. Doesn't replace as much combined sewer on north projects, so future linings recommended. That cost has been included. And there's additional sewer infrastructure installed, which is ongoing maintenance item. So we have a new relief sewer down Downer that doesn't exist now, whereas the 2019 layout basically just replacing or upsizing existing sewers. So there isn't any additional sewer infrastructure. Alternative 2, again, very similar to the 2019 alternative, except here there's no tunneling required, but there is some boring required. And then you do have the work along Menlo. And then alternative 3, again, very similar to 1, difference being that work along Menlo, which results in some boring required, which is a little bit more unknown or higher risk construction method. So the recommended route, alternative 1, the relief sewer along North Downer Avenue. It's the lowest cost alternative. reconstructs Downer, which is in poor condition. Simplified construction on Downer, just 20 feet wider than Prospect, and minimal bypass pumping during construction. A phasing and schedule for the recommended alternative. So Edgewood Interceptor by MMSD, it's being completed, like I said, later this year and next year. And then phase one would be the yellow here. So that would be 2023. And then phase two would be 2024. So that's the orange line, essentially the work on Downer, and then there's a combined sewer on Newton that requires upsizing. And then phase three is Lake Drive, that's by WISDOT, and that's 2026. And there is a little piece here to along Shepherd that requires upsizing too. That's included with the phase one alternatives or phase one work. So presentation summary, the goal, increase level of protection against basement backups. So a computer model is developed and used to predict flows in the system, size pipes, limited flow metering data matches modeled flow as well. 3 alternatives were evaluated. Costs ranged from 13.5 million to 20.9 million. Recommended alternatives number 1, and then construction phase 1 is scheduled for 2023 and phase 2 in 2024. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Are there any questions from the members of the board? Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you. So then would Downer be resurfaced in 2024 at the end of the project?
Correct.
So that would give us 3 more years of Downer the way it is.
Correct.
I guess is it maybe Leanne or either you or Leanne, have we ever done this little mini deep tunnel anywhere else in the village since 2010?
There's a similar sort of pipe, not as big. We kept an existing sewer and we put in a new sewer in the Basin 1 project that functions as a relief sewer. So it's similar concept in Basin 1. I can't think if there's any in Basin 6. I wasn't involved in that design, but yeah, Basin 1, there's a similar concept.
And I guess
my understanding is there's at least one relief line that was constructed in the southeast combined area as part of the 1999 bottleneck project. I believe there is a relief line on Stratford. So it's not a foreign concept here.
And what is not knowing much about, what's the concern about having a water line already there? I guess I would, not being in the industry, I would think that you guys work with existing water lines all the time, but there seems to be, you listed as a concern going with alternative 1, the fact that there's this water transmission line there.
It's just a major feed for the village. So just something to be cognizant of and make sure our design has enough space between the 2 pipes so that there aren't any issues. It's like you said, it's nothing that we don't deal with all the time. But it being a major main for the village, it's a little different than just an 8-inch main that runs along a street that just serves a block or 2 blocks.
Thank you.
Questions from trustees? Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this matter?
I don't show any hands raised.
All right, with this, I'd like to open it up for discussion to the board. We are asked for consideration and action tonight in response. And we do have a suggested motion. Staff is recommending alternative 1. I'll open it up to discussion at this time or a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. If anybody else has any comments, certainly they should go ahead, but I'm comfortable with what we've heard tonight, what we read in the packet, and knowing that this is the recommendation of our staff, I'm ready to make a motion. So I move that alternative 1 be designated as the preferred sewer route and that the consulting engineer be directed to proceed with design.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by trustee Baldoff and seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Any discussion?
I guess I would just like to know from, I believe trustee Arndorfer is on Downer, and maybe Leanne could address this. Can we really let that street go 3 more years? We'd have to, right?
In a perfect world, I don't think any of us would prefer to do that. Though, I think that's a preferable alternative than spending a couple of $100,000 to resurface Downer and then within 2 years, reconstruct it. I think, we will do the very best we can to keep it in good drivable condition. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense fiscally or otherwise to invest the money on a resurfacing when you have full intention of reconstructing it within 2 to 3 years.
Trustee Arndorfer, would you like to comment since trustee Stokebrand mentioned your name?
I will do my, yeah, I agree. It would be preferable to try to address that earlier, but I agree with Leanne's analysis. It is what it is, so.
Thank you. I would like to say this is a really exciting moment. We've been looking forward to it for a decade, and I really commend the staff and previous staff, previous engineers, previous trustees and members of the public who have put in countless hours towards coming up with a solution that is the alternative we have before us tonight is so much more economical and efficient and strategic, and I'm really excited to take this vote. Any further discussion?
Having been flooded twice in July of 2010, I agree with everything you just said there. So.
This is also an issue that inspired me to get involved with local government. If there are no further comments or discussion, I think we could take a roll call vote at this time.
Trustee Baldoff.
Aye.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Ursink.
I believe he has excused himself.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
President McKay.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Applause and confetti. Cue. All right. Good luck. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4B, update on EDI committee progress and consider next steps. So this will be Manager Ewald who will guide us in this, and we will be asked, there is a suggested motion in the packet, and we will be asked to take action if we are ready to do so.
Thank you. President McKay, Sam Coleman just got off a flight, so I'm just going to get him the contact information. Would it be possible to divert to item 4C while he gets situated?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So like I said, we will consider item 4C, update on WSDOT Lake Drive reconstruction project. This is agendaed for update only. It's not for discussion or for action at this time. As you might recall, through there have been lots of emails going back and forth. We thought that the WSDOT team would come before us this evening. They've preferred to come before us in August. However, Rebecca and I decided to keep this item on the agenda because we wanted the village board, we wanted to have the opportunity in open meeting to provide this background information. We have a new board, we have members of the public who may or may not have been involved in the 2018 public process and reconfiguration of Lake Drive that we took on as a village. And so we wanted the opportunity to just make sure that we all had the same information at the same time, we're aware of next steps and communication updates from WSDOT. And so that we know there are lots and lots of people engaged. And in case trustees are, receive emails, that you have the information at your fingertips to provide. It's really a lot of work to go and gather all of this. And I would like to, before I hand it over to Rebecca, I really want to commend her for pulling this together and taking such great care with all the communication coordination and keeping track of what questions have been answered, what's still outstanding. I'd also like to thank Trustee Stokebrand for her high level of responsiveness and participation in neighborhood meetings. And I think it's this type of teamwork that really helps us respond to an issue that is complex in nature and unexpected, to make the most use of our resources and to move forward. So this is an unusual situation. So it's unusual for us to have an update like this, but that's what we're going to do because we thought it was the right thing to do. So Rebecca, are you available or are you communicating? Okay.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So if you want, I want to reference everyone to some of the materials that are located within the packet. So if you are a member of the public and you're joining us, just want to call everyone's attention to the extensive amount of public involvement that has.
I forgot to say a thank you to Trustee Bockhorst, who has brought her knowledge of working with DOT on projects in the city to this as well. And I know that Rebecca has reached out to the other trustees for advice on communications and coordination as well. So it really has been a team effort. Back to you.
Okay. Well, actually, you're highlighting one of the next points I was going to make, because there's been a long history of public involvement and engagement on behalf of the village board on this particular topic. So this, the memo outlines these steps that the boards who have been sitting at the time these decisions have been made since well before 2017 that has led up to this time, and our discussion on the design for reconstruction of Lake Drive. And the same amount of public involvement and care is taking place with our current board. All of the board members have added to and contributed to the approach that collectively and in unison this board is taking with the project. And as you see within the agenda item for discussion this evening or update, is that on Thursday, President McKay will be meeting with the Secretary Thompson of the Department of Transportation with the primary objective of hearing and asking the question of how can the replace as is alternative meet the federal requirements for the Lake Drive reconstruction project. And that's the question that we're going to be looking forward to and leaning into and trying to explore further with the agency as we continue to adhere to their timeline and their process for design looking towards the reconstruction of this roadway. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board that you would like us to take forward that have not been addressed in the memo? And then I will ask if there's anyone from the members of the public who would like to be heard on this matter, with the understanding that we are not taking action this evening. Trustee Stokebrand?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed. When did When is the meeting that you and Manager Ewald will have with the Secretary of Transportation?
I believe it's Thursday morning.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, I would have to also thank Senator Lena Taylor, who arranged a phone call where I was introduced to the secretary, and he welcomed scheduling this meeting. And again, this is just a great example of working with different levels of government and how levels of collaboration can, this is a really unusual situation. I don't think that Department of Transportation comes into communities where they've already designed the project for them. And so, as I said to Secretary Thompson, this could be the easiest project you've ever had. So I really look forward to, that was just a 30-second, introductory call, but I look forward to sharing more with him on Thursday and reporting back. Trustee Bockhorst.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I appreciate that it seems that WSDOT is kind of pivoting a little bit on, sorry. Okay, on some things here. It's unfortunate that they were unable to come this evening because it seems like they have a public information meeting scheduled according to the schedule, unless it's changed since I last received that. It's a little unfortunate that they're not able to be here now when we're able to gather people together. The last one was not that well attended, but I look forward to us all doing the best we can to make sure that the community is notified. I have heard from a lot of people, as I imagine many of you have as well, and the issue of equity has come up quite a bit in my conversations, and just ensuring not only that we can keep the beautiful drive that we have now and avoid turning it into an I-41 or I-43 kind of look with, removing the trees and everything, but also increasing. I'm glad that, it sounds like there's going to be a solution to not increasing the amount of impermeable pavement as well, and environmental issues. And then I guess lastly, I'm looking forward to hearing how we can still keep the exact same plan we have with the parking and the bikes, and a way for WSDOT to receive their federal funding, because I know that's one of the things that drives a lot of the decision making with the state government, is how much money it costs, and that goes all levels of government. But as both Rebecca and you've mentioned, President McKay, this has been going on for a long time. I've been part of all of this, from way back. And I think that, I guess I'll just caution the rest of the board that this is something that things can change when we're dealing with other governmental bodies really quickly. And it's taken us a while. I'm not trying to point fingers at WSDOT here, but it's taken us a while to get some, what I consider pretty basic questions answered. So I hope that doesn't continue. I hope that, this is a true collaborative effort versus, checking off a box here as far as the local government is concerned, which I've seen far too often in these kind of top-down models. We work closest to the community members. We've, a couple of you just ran for the first time and, spoken to a variety of people. So I would say, please remember to get the word out. And I also know that we've had a lot of public input regarding congested streets on the streets just to the west of this. So, when we really have to really consider the parking and in a variety of other aspects. So I'll stop at that. But thank you both for your work as well. And let me know, what I or the rest of the board can do to help.
Carry around those 40 pages of materials that Rebecca gathered for you. That's what you can do. All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this matter tonight?
I would. This is Peter McAvoy.
Okay.
And I'm coming to this, obviously, it sounds like pretty late in the process, or midstream, if you will. I attended this meeting earlier last week at one of the neighbors on Lake Drive. And I was concerned about the alternatives that were being presented and the way they were being presented and the information. I would really welcome getting the full background. And so I'll put that on myself about getting the information that's already been shared with the board. I don't want to be so out of it that I'm misspeaking or whatever, but I'm fundamentally concerned about changing Lake Drive. This is not in my backyard kind of thing. This is thinking about it in a comprehensive way of dealing with a variety of issues that for our community, for Shorewood, but also the neighboring communities, Milwaukee, Whitefish Bay, and the consideration of what they're already doing or what they've already done. And so that was one of my questions, and maybe that's in the file also. But, we just came through another major air quality advisory notice over this weekend. And these things are going to get worse. So in the reference to environmental conditions, I really do think we need to think about that, and removing even some of the trees, or a major part of the number of the trees, would also contribute to a problem. And it would not just be for air quality, it would be for water. And I really appreciated the earlier discussion that we just went through. I listened to that about the sewers and the combined sewers and where we are. And we all, for those of us who've been around for a while, we had flooding in our home in 2010, and Shorewood was really torn up because of all of that. So those conditions, I didn't hear when the alternatives were being discussed, and maybe it was brought up by DOT, the state DOT, and their role in this. But there have been changeovers, turnovers in some of these departments, both at the state and federal level. And I would appreciate not only getting more information, but dealing with the issues that are now confronting our village and our community and the communities that we share borders with along Lake Michigan. So I'm concerned about that. I did not hear a number of the issues that I'm most concerned about addressed by the DOT consultants at that meeting. But I'm engaged now. I'm involved, and I'm going to stay involved. And I appreciate the board's earlier positions, I guess, about this development project. And from what I understand, and maybe that could be clarified as well, the board's been pretty unanimous about trying to stay within the existing footprint and not changing things significantly. And I wholeheartedly support that position of the village board. And I think of my neighbors who turned out at this meeting earlier last week, were, I think, unanimous about that they would be supportive of that. And again, it's not in my backyard kind of thing, but widening the road and doing, you see the use of Lake Drive by pedestrians, by families, by bikers right now. And I bike a lot, and I go inland if I really want to bike, and I get on the trail as quickly as I can. I wouldn't want to ride on Lake Drive. So anyway, I'll stop there, but I appreciate you allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAvoy. Do you mind stating your address so that we have it for the record?
Sure, 3945 North Harcourt Place.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to be heard on this matter? I'm not seeing any hands. Sarah, do you see any?
Nope, I think you're good to move on.
Okay. Thank you so much for everyone for your attentiveness, and also thank you to the neighbors on Lake Drive who have been very engaged in this as well and getting the word out. So more to come. And yep, those 40 pages of materials in the packet tonight are yours for the taping. So,
Okay, thank you.
And any questions that come up, please email our village manager and she will share them with the board. So thank you. Okay, moving on, we're going to move back to item 4B, update on EDI committee progress and consider next steps. I see Mr. Coleman has been able to join us, and I'm very grateful that you have worked us into your travel schedule, Mr. Coleman, and I will hand it over to Village Manager Ewald to bring us in.
Wonderful. Well, tonight we're going to have an update from Sam Coleman on the work of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. That was an internal committee that formed last year for purposes of doing this work. He's going to share an update on some items that we have accomplished over the course of the last 12 months, and then more importantly, provide some recommendations that we can consider as we proceed. Following that, there are two specific considerations we're looking for from the board. One is to proceed with some quotes for strategic planning services, and the second is a reallocation of resources for purposes of our employees and members of our board and committees to attend the YWCA on Learning Racism class later this fall. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam. And think that he is only on the phone. So.
Hi, good evening to you, to all members of the board. I'm Rebecca, good evening. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, so I just want to first give my appreciation to the board for prioritizing the cadence of equity-based education or equity-based professional learning being a part of what leaders of the village municipal structure participates in. And so over the past year, we've had an opportunity to, in essence, have an ongoing conversation for 12 months about what equity leadership looks like, the history of policy and community ideas, and even legislation that frames either equitable outcomes or inequitable outcomes. And so being able to have a discussion over the course of the year about a topic as nuanced and as complex as this is, I think it allows first of all, a lens to be developed for the work, but then it certainly takes a commitment. And so I want to thank, again, the members of the village board, and then all those who participated in our equity, diversity, and inclusion learning opportunities on a monthly basis. I also want to share my appreciation for the commitment to this. I also back up, though, for those who are listening today, maybe just not learning about this, or maybe unclear of where this work came from. So as many of you may remember, around this time last year, our nation, and in our village included, I believe have more opportunities to talk about inequities, particularly around race, that exist in local spaces, and for the killing of George Floyd and other forms of injustices that our nation was paying attention to, and then also our village. We also began to reflect inwardly on the work that we need to do locally as a community and as a village to ensure that we're addressing inequities that occur here locally. So there were, as I understood, a number of community members and residents, even many parents from the school whom I work with, who are also engaged in community organizing work, essentially petitioned our village board to prioritize equity, diversity, and inclusion training to take place at the village level, and particularly village board members and managers. So the commitment to do this work came as a result of, I think, the acknowledgement that members of the village board had already made that it's important to prioritize equity, diversity, and inclusion work. But then also, I think it was supported by a new energy and some new momentum from the community around ways that we can address inequities that might exist here. So anyway, I wanted to share that background because it hopefully then adds some context to who was involved in these EDI courses and how. And so there were two members of the Board of Trustees who engaged in this work. And then we also had department heads or department managers from various departments, including Public Works, our library, our police department, planning and development. And so we had members of including both our board and the department heads to engage in this conversation, and so that there's a discussion and a reflection on how our EDI work manifests here locally within decision making that will take place either at the board level or within departments. So we began, anyways, if you are able to access in the file, we began the work of our EDI work with just understanding the background of what equity, diversity, and inclusion would look like, and then considerations for that. Just understanding that this work that would exist over the course of the year will not solve hundreds of years of inequities that have persisted over time. And so there's a starting point that we take, and that is becoming aware of that. And so we engaged, if you will, an opportunity to frame our work as a long-term strategy, a marathon, if you will, and not a sprint. To be able to examine our own biases and to frame our work as what we need to do both at work and our home spaces and in our community as we're thinking about and talking about equity, diversity, inclusion, and the challenges to that. So anyway, we also looked at our history of marginalization by race and by other identities, and then looked at ways that systems and policies within the village and village departments could be leveraged to include a reflection on inequities or equity outcomes that we want to set as goals, or just to understand the impact that decisions that have been made at the municipal level or even state level, how that may have had impacts on where people choose to live or where people are able to live, the resources and services that they'd be able to access. I won't go into a full summary or review of each of the sessions, but what I will say is as a part of each of our sessions that we worked through, members were asked to share feedback at the end of each session. And I also had an opportunity to meet one-on-one with members who engaged in this work to not only think through the impact that our learning is having on the current practice or current awareness, but then to also think through ways we can have a coordinated strategy at the municipal level to ensure that we all are responsible for paying attention to the inequitable or equitable outcomes that result from decisions that we make, but then also ensuring that there's accountability and opportunity to build our capacity around that. And so from the input that came from each of the sessions, our one-on-one conversations, and then my own reflections and observations through the work that we've been able to engage in over the course of the past year, we were able to come up with a set of recommendations to carry our work forward. And so initially, I think that it is important that the relationships within and across the village departments and in interaction with the village board of trustees should be prioritized in a way that allows village board and department leaders to support cohesion in the implementation of EDI directives. And so as much cohesion and alignment as there can be, and then an opportunity to build relationships so that directives toward equity work can be implemented with the sufficient amount of information sharing and support. I think that would be ideal. And so that's named as one of the top recommendations. Initially, to ensure that the work is collectively owned by all members of the village board, we're recommending that board members would work to identify and participate in ongoing training that builds the awareness and capacity that it takes to lead and support equity, diversity, inclusion strategies within the municipal context. I think that that'll be important because as decision-making occurs at the village board level, those directives will typically be, as I understand it, shared with or handed off to department managers. And so in addition to the training of what this work would look like in municipal contexts, expectations or directives can be given in ways that have a realistic end goal and strategy point in mind. Then we also talked through an agreement that is being recommended to develop a 5-year plan to address inequities within the village. And again, just understanding that work to eliminate inequities is certainly not a sprint. So we're considering a 5-year plan as a way to begin the marathon to identify a strategy that the village would commit to, where EDI goals that are collaboratively developed by the community can be prioritized and what that strategic work would look like. And then also within that, it's being recommended that an equity audit is conducted as a part of that 5-year strategic planning work and reviewed annually and reported on annually to identify the progress that will be made toward those goals around EDI. And then also recommended that all village employees, volunteers, and trustees are given an opportunity on an annual basis to participate in a confidential workplace climate survey. At this time, we know that we don't ask or inquire about the experience of employees, volunteers, and members who work within our municipal structure, what the workplace climate feels like, and particularly what that feels like through an equity lens. And so it's recommended that we, at least on an annual basis, ask. And then that survey would then solicit responses pertaining to employees and volunteers' sense of belonging, inclusion within the workplace, and the perceived impact of strategies implemented to address equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then lastly, we're recommending that all new hire and onboarding orientations include at least one learning module on equity, diversity, and inclusion. I think that this orientation could also be offered to newly elected trustees, committee members, and volunteers. And this not only would start off as a strong stance that is being communicated to whoever becomes a public servant, either through volunteerism or appointment or election, that there's a commitment in the stance that aligns with equity-related goals. But then I also think that this new hire training also gives an opportunity to build capacity, or at least start the process of building capacity to really be deliberate about the work that the attention that we're paying to equity or inequity that occurs under our leadership. So I think at this time, if it would be helpful, I'm happy to answer questions or to talk through just kind of what our process consisted of and any of the recommendations that I named. I know that was kind of a lot at once.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman. I think, we have all this in our packet for this evening. And so I know it felt like you were saying a lot, but you can follow along in the materials, and it's very clearly laid out and also. So I would like to open it up to see if members of the board have questions, and also if any members that were participated in the EDI work group over the past year, if you would like to comment at this time. Okay. Kathy?
Thank you, President McCaig. I would just like to say thank you to Sam, who I think, did we start last August or September? I can't remember. It was an interesting and insightful experience for me. I'm sorry we can't continue with you, but I would like to thank you for the way that you got us started down this path.
Thank you, Trustee Stoker-Brand.
Before moving on to discussion and see in anticipation of a motion this evening, I would like to ask if there are any members of the public that would like to be heard on this matter. Okay, seeing none. We are being asked this evening to consider next steps. Manager Ewald has put forward a motion with 2 action items. I would entertain a motion. I support this motion and would like to add something to it. So I'll just say what it is, just in case someone's ready to make a motion right away. I think that the item number 1, recommendation number 1, the imperative of building trust and cohesion around EDI initiatives, I would love to add that to the motion and refer the item number 1 to Strategic Initiatives Committee for further discussion, so that we aren't in holding ourselves accountable, that we are continuing to look for ways that we can keep this discussion going, because strategic planning is a great goal and objective, but it is also a way of, well, until you have a consultant to do the strategic planning, you can't do anything. And we really just don't want to do that. So I think there are lots of like sort of natural, low cost, no cost ways that I'm sure with a little bit of discussion and brainstorming, we could add or work into the way we conduct business moving forward. So would anybody like to make a motion at this time?
I'll make a motion. Oh, I see Trustee Stokebrand's hand went up. If she wants to make it, she
Okay,
should.
I just wanted to clarify something in the bit about the budget. So I was looking at it. It looked to me like we had it's a difference of $1,000. I think we had $6,500 for unlearning racism under the village board budget, and then $10,000 for Sam Coleman. And if you subtract the $4,700 that we've already paid him, that leaves $11,800, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the YWCA is $500 a person. So that would be about like a little over 23 people could do the EDI, the YWCA Unlearning Racism class, according to my math. And I can't remember how many people were in the EDI sessions with Sam, but the YMCA, isn't that weekends? Or is it evenings? I just wonder with staff how we're going to do this.
The classes actually occur during the week, and we would make it available to those who desired to participate, whether that be from the board, committee, or staff. So I think what we're looking to do is put the opportunity out there and then see who would like to step forward to participate in the class. Okay. And then based upon that participation, we would attempt to provide a supportive environment to encourage and also support those who are attending at that time.
So I guess, are you looking to, it's like I could make a motion for the last part, which is reallocating the remaining funding for participation in the YWCA class, and then I would throw in not to exceed 11,800, because that, according to my math, that's what we have left in that account. So would you like me to make that motion? President McCaig, were you looking to divide that up?
You know, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I think if it's easier for the board to consider, we could take them individually. I don't see it an issue with that. Does Attorney Bayer or Manager Ewald, is there any concern about taking these individually for clarity purpose?
No, there's not.
Okay. No. Great. Well,
okay, then I'm prepared to move then. Oops, sorry. I move that we reallocate remaining funding for participation in the YWCA Unlearning Racism class and other EDI training with the remaining 2021 funds not to exceed $11,800.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that. I just wanted to clarify, because is that number the correct number? Because I thought that was, unless I misheard, that was Trustee Stokebrand's math. I just want to make sure we're not having to come back if it's like 11,900 or something. So I just want to make sure, how can we couch this language to ensure that we're being transparent, but also I don't want to have to revisit this over a small accounting error. Is there any way to, rectify that?
A suggestion would be to say an estimated 11,800.
If we can have kind of a friendly amendment on that language, then I'd be happy to second.
Also, I'll make it not to exceed 12 grand, $12,000.
Does that? Is there anyone that wants to second that?
I mean, I just want to, can we just keep that estimated language in there? Like I said, I just don't think it's a good use of our time. If the village staff is like, oh yeah, that's the number, then great. But just knowing that it was kind of like a back of the napkin math, like I said, I just want to make sure we're not having to revisit this. But if if I misheard something and staff was like, yes, that's correct, then I'm good.
Not to exceed the remaining item in the budget or $12,000, whichever is less.
Whichever is less or greater?
Or wait, no, whichever.
I want to go with what the estimated. I'm comfortable with that, but not with just.
That works too.
Well, point of order, there's no second for the motion that's been made. So Trustee Stokebrand, would you take a friendly amendment to add estimated, or would you prefer to let the motion?
So the budget I have is, if the budget is on page 81 of the 2021 budget, which is on the website. And so Unlearning Racing was 6,500. Sam Coleman was, with the materials, is $10,000. And I believe the packet says that we spent 4,700 with him, right? So if you take 6,500 and you subtract 4,700, 16,500 and you subtract 4,700, it leaves you with $11,800. Unless Rebecca or if staff knows other money that was spent that.
Okay.
So I'd just like to clarify, and we addressed this in the memo, but it says in 2020 services of 2,250 were expended, which was a different fiscal year. And then in 2021, we've expended 2,050 for a total of 4,700.
Okay.
So the contract spread over 2 fiscal years. So we've allocated based upon those various budgets.
I think point of order, I think we should see through this. Why don't we see if the motion carries forward? There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? If there is no second, the motion will not move forward, and I would entertain another motion. Okay, motion fails for lack of second. Do I have a motion? Would somebody like to make another motion, a different one?
Melissa, were you going to make one, or should I go and do it?
You can go ahead.
Basically the same motion, just allocating the rest of either estimated amount or the rest of the budget. Whatever's cleaner, I don't care.
How about not to exceed remaining budget?
Sure.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's do a roll call vote for clarity.
All right. To reallocate the remaining funding for participation in Unlearning Racism class and other EDI training, not to exceed the remaining budget amount. Trustee Stokebrand.
No.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Baldoff.
Yes.
President McKeag.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, thank you. And I look forward to hearing updates from Manager Ewald regarding that. Would somebody like to make a motion regarding the other recommendation in our materials? I believe pertaining to an RFP, creation of an RFP for strategic planning, particular to EDI objectives.
I can make that motion. I move to prepare an RFP for strategic planning services and 2022 budget proposal for this service. Did I get everything we needed in that part? Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion with a second. Any discussion? Yeah, I support this. Seeing none. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Bachhorst,
Yes.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Baldoff,
Yes.
trustee Stokerbrand,
Aye.
President McKay.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
And I would like to make another motion related to this item, referring recommendation number 1 to Strategic Initiatives Committee for further discussion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I mean, this is procedural just because you could have referred it there anyway as president, but I appreciate that you're including us.
Thank you for receiving. If there's no discussion, let's take a quick roll call.
Trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Baldoff,
Aye.
trustee Stokerbrand,
Aye.
trustee Bachhorst,
Yes.
President McKay.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, I believe that concludes this agenda item. Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman. Thank you, Manager Ewald. Thank you for the discussion, and I look forward to being engaged on the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Sarah.
good day. Take care.
Yeah, take care. All right, moving on to item number 5, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Let's, all those in favor. Oh, Kathy Stokebrand?
I'd like to pull an item,
Okay,
5A.
all right. Motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5A. All
Aye.
those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 6, items removed from the consent agenda. That would be 5A, except presentation of accounts, July 6th, 2021. Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you. I was just looking through, I'm trying to find the page. I believe it's, let's see, 168 of the packet. I just wondered if this was a typo. 4th of July, we paid $6,300 for one entertainer. It just stuck out so much. I wondered if it was a typo. Everybody, I mean, I don't know. It just looked very odd to me. Does anybody have any insight?
Tyler?
I have insight on that. Yeah. So Sarah worked with Professor Pinkerton because a lot of our bands canceled this year due to the pandemic. So she worked with Professor Pinkerton, who found a number of the acts. She paid Professor Pinkerton, or we paid Professor Pinkerton the $6,300 for, I think it was like 3 bands and 4 other vendors. So it's a total of 7, I think 7 groups that
Okay.
that $6,300 pays.
Okay, thank you. Then I will move to accept presentation of the accounts.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, second, with a second. Any discussion? Thank you, Trustee Stokebrand, for bringing that, clarifying that. All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye, show of hands. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, public hearings. There are none tonight. Moving on to item 8, citizens to be heard. This item is for matters not on the agenda. Discussion may follow, comment on non-agenda items, or discussion and action may come at future meetings. Is there anyone who would like to be heard this evening?
This time I had no one pre-registered, so if there is anybody that would like to speak, if they could either raise their virtual hand or unmute themselves and state their name and address at this time. I see nothing, so I think you can move on.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 9, new business, 9A. New business, AKA the Leanne Butchlick Show. It's a 9A, consider award of contract for streetlight cabinet replacement. Director Butchlick.
Not all me, just
I
just a couple.
supporting after group.
Yes. All right. So the board will recall that we've discussed the replacement of the streetlight control cabinets systematically in several long-range financial plan discussions. This item replaces the cabinet, which is currently located behind Lake Bluff School, just off Morris. We received 2. The project was publicly bid. We received 2 bids. The lowest submitted by Outdoor Lighting Construction. We have worked with Outdoor several projects in the past. In each of those projects, they were a subcontractor to a general contractor during street reconstruction. But staff has no concerns about them being the lowest, most responsible bidder, and we would recommend the award of the project to Outdoor Lighting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or any members of the public who would like to be heard on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Trustee Bachhorst.
I move to award a contract of Outdoor Lighting Construction Company Inc. for the Lake Bluff Street Lighting Control Panel replacement in the amount of $67,150,000.00.
Second.
Okay, motion followed by a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's take a roll call vote.
Trustee Baldoff.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
President McKay.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on to 9B. Director Bushlick, consider professional services agreement for engineering of 2022 alley reconstruction program.
Recall that in May of this year, the board directed staff made the decision to adjust some of the schedule in the long-range financial plan, moving the once anticipated 2022 pavement replacement of Oakland Avenue back to allow the business district community to adjust and recover from the effects of COVID. In its place, the board moved the scheduled 2025 alley program up to 2022. In response, staff issued a board-approved RFP for engineering, design, and construction and action services. We received 3 responses to that request for proposal. Those responses came from the firms of Clark Dietz, Kapoor, and Strand Associates. Of the responses, the recommended firm is Kapoor. Proposals were reviewed by myself, Joel Colsty, and Trustee Ursink, who is Chair of Public Works. We have a consensus agreement that the Kapoor would be the recommended firm to complete the design engineering of the alleys that were previously outlined for the 2022 program. We can leave it at that brief statement, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Trustee Stokerian.
Thank you, President McKay. I have a question. This is the first time with the Lake Drive project that I've had any contact with Kapoor, and I'd have to say it's not going well. But my understanding from this contract is that there would not be a lot of interface with the public with this. It would be mostly with you and them because it's just the nature of the contract. Is that correct, Director Buchlik?
They're the design engineer. They'll also provide construction inspection and management services. That person would have significant public contact. I think, I would point out that this is a different team than is working in the WSDOT program. I would also say, in fairness, the communications and responses that the village has with Kapoor is directed and controlled by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Kapoor works for WSDOT. So I think just to be fair and transparent, I would just like to note that I think that their answers are, they're answering on behalf of someone else, and those answers are directed by their client.
Fair enough. I can make a motion then if, the price is right. So, and I respect the work that the committee's done on this. I do have concerns, and I understand it's a different project, but their work has to represent itself too. So, but I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready, President McKay.
Mm-hmm.
I move authorization of a professional services agreement for the 2022 alley reconstruction program, engineering, design, and construction inspection services with Kapoor Inc. in the amount of $105,585.
My apologies for that.
It's okay. I got it, I think.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
you did.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion followed by a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, Leanne, just a question. Any sense as to, the proposals are, it's fairly wide variation in the proposals. Any point of view as to why that is, such a spectrum here?
I really can't. I think it's different firms with different outlooks and different anticipated expectations.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Arndorfer. Any further discussion? Oh, Trustee Stokerian.
I did have one other question. I was talking to someone else about Kapoor, and do they qualify for some sort of distressed or disadvantaged or minority contracting choice?
I'm not certain if they're classified as an MDE. If that's the question that you're asking.
I think it is. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the language, but okay. All right. No, I stand by my motion. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we could take a roll call vote.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Baldoff.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
President McKay.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Moving on to item 9C, consider ordinance 3026 to amend the village's sanitary sewer user charge system fees. Director Bushlick. Or Director Emanuelson.
How about if I give this a go?
Okay.
Unless Lan, you're ready, you just want to go after it. This item was before the Finance Committee last month. This is a continuation of several years of discussion related to long-range financial plan, the Southeast Sewer Project, and the staff's recommended strategy to incrementally move the user fees for sewer services to be able to fund that work. The alternative is to come with even more dramatic increases and at some point in time in the future. The staff continues to support that and would ask for your support of this, the motion to approve this ordinance.
Are there any questions or members of the public that would like to be heard? I don't think we have too many members of the public left.
I don't see anybody.
Okay. If there are no questions, we can move on to discussion. I would entertain a motion.
Can make a motion.
Trustee Glenn.
I move to approve ordinance 3026 to amend the village's sanitary sewer user charge system fees as proposed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Oh, I forgot to ask, Trustee Stokbrand.
I just wanted to clarify with Mark. I know at one point it talked about an 18% increase, but then in the chart it showed different sizes. They were all above 20%. And I think the 18%, I think maybe there was a typo in, I think it's on page 399 of the packet. Maybe it's the percent is being confused with the one from 2019. It talks about a sewer utility rate increase of 18% to begin on January 1, 2020. So that's
right. That's in the history section of the memo.
Right.
So that was back in 2019.
The 18%.
That was the history to this. That was the first incremental increase designed to gradually increase rates to be able to support the construction of the Southeast Sewer Project. This proposed one is the second such incremental increase. And then depending on the final project cost, staff will bring the final increase to the board probably in 2024.
And did I see that this one represents, is it 27% increase? At least in the volume rate. I know it's a two-part.
Correct. There's a two-part, and the volume fee at this level is 27%. The flat rate fee is 8.5%. And then the table shows the combined impact of those two changes to various users of different quantities. And it averages between 23.9% and 26.9%, depending on how heavily you rely on volume versus the flat rate fees. So a modest difference there, but in general, the long range plan was calling for a 25% recommended increase to achieve those goals. And we believe this proposal is consistent with that.
Thank you. And then I just would like to point out that with this increase, this is something that will not show up on the tax levy, but it will affect people in the village. And the other thing that we've done is we've added the public fire protection fee to the water bill. So something to keep in mind when it comes time to set the tax levy is that we have already increased sewer and water fees. Thank you. I'm ready to vote.
I was going to ask you, Trustee Stokerbrand, as Chair of Finance, or is there anything you want to convey based on your discussion at committee?
No, I mean, it's in the packet and,
Okay.
you know, it's part of paying the bills with the sewer. You know, we have to get it done and I just hope everybody remembers it when it's time to set the tax levy. Thank you. I think it was a unanimous vote, Jim, wasn't it? Do you remember, Trustee Arndorfer?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, with that, let's see, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion and questions. We could take a roll call vote.
Yep. Trustee Baldoff,
Yes.
Trustee Backhorst,
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
Trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
President McKay.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Moving on to 9D, consider authorization to hire equipment operator, root collector, and equipment operator 2, Director Bushlick.
Okay, I apologize. I wasn't prepared to present this, but I certainly can.
Oh,
Um,
did I call on is this Mr. Burkhart's item?
Tyler, would you like me to go ahead?
I certainly can. I wrote the memo, so I'd be happy to take the lead.
Okay, my apologies for that oversight.
So in front of you today is an authorization to hire for 2 positions. One position was talked about at the committee level last time. Originally, we used the comment or the title of special equipment operator, which we have changed to equipment operator 2. So that summary and job description is included for the packet. The other position that's since our last meeting that has become vacant is one of our route collectors. So we would like to receive authorization to hire for that position as well. Just on a side note, in the summary, you'll see we included some additional language. It's not for discussion tonight, but it was just something that we wanted to let you know in reference to the FTE count in DPW. That as we start putting together the 2022 budget, that the construction coordinator position, we would go back to what we have been doing. Actually, we did this year too. I know in the budget for 2021, we had that as a village FTE, but we would propose for that to go back to 2020. So that's just a 2020 model. So that's just an FYI for all of you to know. So you are keeping track of what the FTE count for the Department of Public Works. But we're asking tonight for authorization to hire for both of these positions.
And this was at Public Works Committee prior to this?
The equipment operator 2 was, the route collector is something new that just occurred in the last 2 weeks, that vacancy. So we just want to get started on that process right away.
Right, I appreciate your attention to that timeliness since we don't meet a second time in July, so that would really set us back. Trustee Backhorst.
I was just ready to make a motion.
I would take that motion.
I don't have this in front of me right now, so whatever the motion is in the packet.
All right, Trustee Backhorst makes the motion as presented in the packet.
I can read it.
Okay.
I move to authorize staff to hire for the equipment operator / route collector and the equipment operator 2 positions.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Baldoff. Trustee Stokebrand, did you have a comment? Oh,
No,
your hand.
sorry.
Okay, you tricked me. All right. Are there any other comments or discussion at this time? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Yep. Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Baldoff,
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
President McKay.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
9E, consider policy 43, traffic and parking regulation request program. This will be brought to us by Director Griepentrag. And for new board members, I'll remind you that this is coming to us from the Traffic Advisory Group, which was a group that was created as part of our parking and transportation analysis that was done a few years ago, or maybe even a year and a half ago, but pretty recently. And that this group was convened as part of that process and kept in place to work through the operationalization of the recommendations that came out of that analysis. So with that, I will hand it over to Director Griepentrag.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, President McKay. That was a great introduction and overview. Within your packet tonight is a proposed traffic and parking regulation request program. As noted, the village does not currently have a defined procedure for this type of request. And throughout recent history, various departments have gotten them and handled them in different fashions. And so we'd like to work under the guide of the transportation and parking analysis to improve communication and standardize those requests. The analysis suggested that parking requests would go through the planning and development department, and that transportation or traffic related requests would go through the public works department. And so within your packet tonight, there's a defined procedure. It's attached with its entirety. The first step would be an application from the stakeholder who is seeking the change. With that, we are requesting that a $100 review fee be required with that application, in part to make sure that the request is serious, and in part to cover costs that obviously will not cover full costs if various departments are involved as required. But we are suggesting that it's somewhat similar to other fees, such as the special privilege loading zone fee. So when a request would come in, the lead department would begin the process by sending it out for review and compiling those comments. If staff were to recommend either moving forward with it or further research, that would be taken to the Public Works Committee for that further discussion. If budgetary items are required, such as a transportation study, which could be quite costly, if those are requested either by staff or required by the Public Works Committee, that discussion would take place as to whether or not the applicant would be required to pay that fee, or if the village thought it was something that we were interested in proceeding with. As an overview that I probably should have mentioned when I started this discussion, the village's transportation and parking regulations are pretty stable. We don't have a lot of large land use changes, and so it's expected that we would have a lot of these requests, yet we do receive them. And so we're trying to make sure that when we do get them, that we process them in a common fashion. So yeah, if we were to recommend approval, we would take the Public Works Committee for that conversation. If we were to recommend denial, staff would have the opportunity to deny the applicant based on stated reasoning. If the applicant disagreed with that reasoning, they could appeal that denial back to the Public Works Committee. So in short, this process provides staff with some sort of standardized process to process these requests. We would use crash data, things of that nature, to provide a preliminary response and take it through the Public Works Committee if we felt it needed to be implemented. Just for your reference, things like stop signs, yield signs, parking regulations, those are all code changes that would require board approval. And so staff can't just approve those as is, but we do feel comfortable with these sort of standards in place that we would be able to review and perhaps cull some of the unnecessary requests before they get to that point. So the policy is in your packet tonight for discussion. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Trustee Arndorfer?
Yeah, thanks, Bart. Any examples of some of the things that have come before the board or the village in the past that this would be addressing moving forward?
Yeah, so one of the more recent examples is there's, oftentimes there's two-way stop signs that some neighbors or residents would like to make into a four-way stop sign. That's actually highly discouraged by most transportation and traffic manuals, yet the neighborhood perhaps feels as though it's something that's warranted. So from time to time, we do get those requests to go from a two-way stop to a four-way stop. The analysis actually provides us with good documentation as to when those should be approved or not approved. So that's kind of one of the more common ones. earlier this spring, I received a request to change parking regulations outside of a commercial building that were atypical to what the other commercial parking regulations were. So I think in that case, I probably would have recommended moving forward with approval of that just because they were atypical. But once again, that requires board action. So they're items similar in stop signs, loading, parking zone, hour regulations, things of that nature.
All right, so I mean, not a ton, but enough that having a process in place will help facilitate these.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Baldoff.
I have something I just wanted to get some clarification on. If there's a situation where, there's a request for an increase in, accessible parking spaces or something, is that something where we're going to have to ask for, people to pay to have that assessment done? I just want to make sure that if there is an accessibility issue or some kind of, equity issue, that we're not asking people to pay money, to ensure that they have full, the ability to fully participate in our village.
Yeah, and that's a great question. We actually have a separate process for that. So perhaps worth noting in here that those are exempted from this. We have
Okay, great.
Without a fee for requests for accessible parking zones. So that would not be covered within this. That's covered elsewhere, and there is no fee for those, or there are no fees for those.
Trustee Stokebrand.
First of all, I think this is a great idea because I've had people come up to me. I've only been a trustee a year, and people have said, we need a stop sign, we need a sign here, so I think this is a very good idea. I saw the tag meeting on the calendar and I thought, oh my God, am I a tag member? I don't know who's, so I think if we're going to keep using the technical advisory group, first of all, we should spell it out on first usage because most people won't know what it is. And it should probably be somewhere on the village website. And if I could figure out where to put it, I would make a recommendation, but I'm not sure. I do just have a problem with the $100 fee because, I think some people see a safety issue like parking. I don't feel so strongly about, and I don't know if it's worth trying to split them off, but for someone to say, no, I really think the village should look at, other than complaining to a trustee, to say to the village, no, I really think there's a safety issue here and you should look at it. And the village says, you got to give me $100 first. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I understand why it's proposed, but I have a hard time. For parking, I don't feel so strongly, but for a traffic safety issue, I would have a hard time charging someone for bringing a concern up.
Thank you for raising that. I was going to raise the same issue, and I would support a motion that does not include the $100 fee. Would anyone like to make a motion, or is there any members of the public who would like to be heard on this matter?
There's not.
Okay. Any further, would anybody like to make a motion or ask a question? Trustee Stokebrand?
I recommend approval of policy 43 traffic and parking regulation request program for approval as drafted with modification of removal of the $100 fee, application fee.
I would second that. All right, we have a motion seconded by President McCaig. Any discussion? Seeing none, it will be a roll call vote.
Correct. Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Baldoff.
Yes.
President McCaig.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Point of order, since we removed the $100 fee, do we need 9F?
No.
All right, very efficient. We eliminated that. In place of 9F, would anyone like to update the Bucks score? Announce the Bucks score.
Happy to. It is 62-52. The Suns are leading.
All right, thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to item 10, reports of village officials. I have a couple. First of all, I'd like to say for the July 4th events, it was really a wonderful day. Excellent job. Thank you to everybody that was involved. Thank you to all the trustees that came out. And I enjoyed it. Item 2, I attended Coffee with a Cop and really appreciated that. It gave me a lot to think about, and I look forward to taking that forward. I think that I think it was an even ratio, a 1-to-1 ratio between officers, staff, and citizens in attendance. So it was a pretty impressive turnout. Let's see, item 3, Executive Crowley is coming for a tour of the municipality as part of his kind of inaugural making the rounds. And so we will be taking him around next week. If there are any suggestions or advice or things that you'd like us to put on the itinerary, please send those to Rebecca. And I will report back around that. And then finally, I became aware that it's about 60 days into our new board. And so congratulations to all of us for making it this far. I want to say thank you. I'm learning from each one of you and from all the residents that are participating in a variety of ways. I already have a list of improvements and things that I can get better at, mainly around communication. And I'm sure you all are learning all the time too. And I'm slowly meeting with stakeholders. It will take me a while because the only shortage we have is time, right? But anyway, I just wanted to say, and if there's anything, I know that if you want to comment on your 60 days and what you look forward to, we could take it as part of your report. So that's all I have. Village trustees, would you like to report on 60-day milestone or anything else? Trustee Bockhorst?
Thank you. So I would say that I am elated with the first 60 days of this board. I know that we're still in the Zoom and we will be going in person soon. I look forward to that return. I will say, as the longest standing board member here, that I've seen a lot of different boards and boards makeups, and by far, I'm going to say it, this is my favorite. That is not to diss on past boards, but I think we've come together really well during these times. And really move the ball forward. I like how our meetings are run very efficiently, effectively. I feel that we have a greater amount of communication. I've heard from the community that from a lot of people in the community that our board meetings are now boring. So I take that as a great sign. And I guess maybe Anne, you and I, maybe Melissa, I know the three of us are really good comics, so we could probably jazz it up a little bit, but not anyway. So thank you. And I'm really enjoying, this is my last stretch on this board. And, you know, you guys will get to fill my spot in April, and not looking forward to leaving, but also looking forward to ending my tenure with a great team in place. So there's that. Regarding the 4th of July parade, thank you, everyone. It was really hot. I will also say that it was for me personally, I really enjoyed it, probably the most. And I don't know if that's because we just came out of, you know, one of the toughest kind of times in lockdown. It was nicely attended. And the 4th of July celebration as well. I noticed that there were either a lot of Mardi Gras colors or a lot of Bucks colors, the purple and green fireworks. But regardless, it was a great celebratory day. And so I'm really happy that we have not only this team in place, the events team in place, and look forward to more.
Trustee Baldoff?
I would just actually echo a lot of that. I wanted to say it's been a great 60 days so far. And the highlight for me was the parade over the weekend and getting to meet so many people in person and just be around people. And I think that's, the fact that we were able to celebrate together over the 4th, as a village with our friends, with our family, is really a testament to what happens when we have good government. And, that's at every level. So, I would just applaud everyone who worked so hard to make it possible for people to be together, and, thank our team in North Shore Health, and thank our, public safety staff, public works staff for, making sure that we had a fun and safe event. So I look forward to, getting to start meeting in person and, keep working.
All right. Any other reports? Trustee Stokran.
I would also like to thank the DPW. I think you did a fabulous job this weekend after the fireworks, and also to the police department. You did a great job. Thank you, Tyler, and to your, I think Sarah was the person that you had organizing the parade. Nice job.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what everybody said there regarding the 4th. And I mean, I don't know if there were more people down at the lakefront than usual, but it definitely felt that way. So, I mean, I think across the board, it was just a great day for the village in general. So it was really exciting to be a part of that. And yeah, I just wanted to thank staff again for helping ease myself and, perhaps the rest of the board, but certainly myself, and through these first 60 days. So thanks again.
Awesome. Yeah, it was nice to experience joy in public. So moving on to village manager's report. I believe you want to tell us about the CDA meeting.
I do. I want to tell everybody about it. So on Friday morning, if you have an opportunity to join us at 8:30, I believe it's 8:30. Yep, 8:30 a.m. The CDA is going to be hosting Milwaukee County, specifically Isaac Rowlett, who's the director of strategic planning, and then also Jeff Roman, who is director of the Office in African American Affairs. And they're going to be reviewing with us the Milwaukee County strategic plan on equity. The reason that this meeting is being hosted by the CDA is because we are on a journey of learning how affordable housing fits into that overall perspective. And there was discussion of starting with a regional approach because it's a regional problem and something that is impacted and can be addressed in our communities in different ways. So we're looking forward to them coming and presenting, and the CDA having an opportunity to do some question and answer. That session is going to be recorded, and we're going to be uploading that online. And within the next 30 days, we're also going to be putting together educational opportunities for the CDA, but also in collaboration with the Shorewood Library and Human Relations Commission as we make our way through this work. What's really important is that as we go along on our journey, we want to make sure that we provide that to everyone online and in the capacity. So when they notice or choose to plug in and become a part of our process, we can give them the opportunity to do so. One thing we're also hoping is that it provides a consistent sheet of music for new members of boards or committees who may join or rotate over the course of time, to leave a really clear roadmap of some of the research we've done that will culminate and then lead to some further recommendations about how we proceed with affordable housing. So in sum, please join us. If you can't join us, no problem. It's going to be recorded. That is something you can access at any time. Thank you.
That reminds me, I think I forgot to report that the Joint Review Board had its annual meeting, which is the board that accepts the reports of the TIDs. The TIDs are healthy. We accepted the report, and I will say that the representative from the county, Aaron, I forget his last name, and also our village representative, who's Kate Flynn, both commented that they were glad to hear that the CDA was going to partner with the Human Relations Commission around learning opportunities for affordable housing. And the county is very supportive of us taking a very intentional approach to developing criteria for the use of TID1 extension funds. And they look forward to ongoing commitment to increasing and diversifying affordable housing options, both in Shorewood, but also how we can lead other municipalities to follow suit. So I just want to report that it came up at the JRB meeting as well. All right. We have item 11, items for future consideration. Are there any items? Seeing none, we have a closed session this evening, and so I would entertain a motion to go into closed session, followed by a very brief bio break if needed, and then we would go right into closed session. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session. Do we need to come back into open session then, or no?
I do not believe that we are taking action this evening. I believe we're giving direction. Is that true? Okay.
So I move to go into closed session, but then we don't make a motion to adjourn too.
I'm sorry, did you have is that a question?
Yeah.
You'll make it in the closed session to adjourn.
Okay.
You're just never going back into open session.
Okay. So I move we go into closed session.
We have to read the statutory description. It's the state law.
Do you have it? Otherwise, I can read it.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So the motion would be the village board, upon motion duly made, may convene into closed session to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1E to confer with legal counsel for bargaining reasons regarding the police union agreement.
Second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote.
Correct. Trustee Baldoff.
Yes.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
President McKeag.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And then you have a separate closed session link. So you'll be leaving this link to go to that.
And we will convene that at 9:41, please.